European Union is obviously pushing back, and they're saying we didn't edit anything in response to Chinese pushback. This is just the sort of normal kind of editing process we go through. What's really remarkable here is that this is a fight over a pretty boring document. Every month or so, the EU have actually a pretty cool program where EU analysts go out and they find disinformation, state-sponsored disinformation, and they flag it so that there's some sort of place people can go and say, oh, wait, that's not real. That's fake news. And as part of that, they issue these updates. And one of the updates that was supposed to come early last week was going to have some pretty harsh words for Russia and China for their disinformation around COVID-19. And when word got out that one was coming, China reacted very swiftly and pushed back very hard on their diplomats, EU diplomats in Beijing. And we were able to get a hold of some internal correspondence inside the European Union officials here in Brussels that showed that the reaction in Brussels was, let's make changes. This is pretty controversial. And they just sort of subtly tamped down and toned down the language.
And that, you feel, based on what you've seen, was directly due to response, either economically, politically, or whatever, Matt, from the Chinese government?
Well, I've seen some of the cables that came out of Beijing, and the Chinese didn't threaten anything explicitly. They said, look, this wouldn't be good for our relationship. And obviously the EU is a major trading partner with China, and there's a lot of trade money at stake once COVID is passed. So there wasn't like a threat. And they did publish their report, and it still mentioned China. It was just toned down just a little bit in key places. And rather than focusing on just China and Russia, it became kind of like, well, it's a worldwide look, and China was put near the bottom. And so the EU's right. Yeah, we called out China, but also at the same time, it allows you to see the effects of pressure when, diplomats and national governments put pressure on institutions just to soften their tone.
Yeah, and every day it feels like, Matt, through your agency, New York Times, and others, we are getting more details out about China's cover-up in this, certainly. And part of your reporting, which the New York Times reported back in March 13th, was that apparently certain media outlets in China were trying to spin the idea to their own domestic population that coronavirus was spread by American soldiers, that we were responsible in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, what you're seeing here is, it's important to remember that early on in December of 2019, as this outbreak was really taking hold in China, the Chinese government tried to tamp things down and tried to suppress doctors and downplay this. And we really lost several key weeks as a human race. We lost a key month because of that. The Chinese government is really trying to move the conversation past that and move them towards a conversation about the really important research that Chinese scientists have contributed to COVID-19 and all of the masks and equipment that the Chinese government has donated. So what you're seeing is part of this effort to say, hey, let's not talk so much about December. Let's talk much more about what we're doing now and reframe China's role in this as a global leader rather than one of the responsible parties.